We talk about a figure 9 created between the shoulder, the elbow, the hands and the bat. So you see this figure 9. And when players move forward, that figure 9 goes with them as the toe of the bat goes up, and the same when they go back. It's called a step and swing, and you create that figure 9 to allow you to create the back swing.
Just run us through your coaching philosophies before we get into the specifics of the batting drills.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, batting, keep it simple. And I think having really good basics from the setup, from the position you have when the ball is being released, that allows you to play the shots. I'm a firm believer that the shots aren't that difficult, but they are if the position you're in when the ball comes out doesn't allow you to get into that position. So, and you look at all the world's best players, they have very consistent setups, they're beautifully balanced, which allows them to get into good positions to play the shot. So that would be my main batting philosophy. And I think my philosophy as a coach is, when working with players, is to help them to understand what they're doing, good and bad, understand their game, and to develop their own game so that they don't become coach reliant. I think the days of coaches telling players what to do is long gone. So I think it's about players really understanding what they're doing, as I say, so they can almost put themselves right and they don't have to keep knocking on our doors, coaches. Starting with the grip, I mean, the grip is a very personal thing, and you'll see some players have a very, the top of the hand, the top hand is a long way around the back of the bat. The old-fashioned English way was almost to have the top hand around the front of the handle, and things change. It needs to be comfortable, but it needs to be effective. And when I say your grip needs to be effective, it needs to allow the bat to come down in a consistent straight line so you can present a full face of the bat to the ball. Generally what you're looking for is the two hands to work together. If you have a big gap, I mean, and there are worlds, fine players around the world who do have a gap and they're very successful, but generally you're looking to have two hands work together, and you're looking at two V's. You're looking at the V of the top hand, where you see a little V there between the first finger and the thumb, would run down the center of the back of the bat, and then the bottom hand V would be slightly more down the splice. All right. What we're trying to avoid, in a sense, is where the V becomes an O. So once this hand, the bottom hand, starts to get further around the bat, you get a stronger bottom hand, and the bottom hand often then starts to take over the shot. With all the differences of grips and positions on the handle, a common theme for all top-class batters is that the front side of the body, which is the top hand, the forearm, the left shoulder, that dominates the backswing and it dominates the bat path. Yes, they might bring the bottom hand in, but it comes in behind the front hand. They don't allow the bottom hand to do all the playing. It comes behind the front side. All right, so we're looking at the V's. We have top hand down the middle of the bat, bottom hand V's a little bit more down the splice. And then when we actually set up with those hands, what we're trying to do is to get a straight line between the front elbow, the top elbow and the top hand with the bat. So the straight line already set up that can then allow the bat to go up and down on a straight path. But it's this alignment here that's crucial. You'll sometimes see batters where the hand and the elbow, and if you did a straight line, they're almost going out to gully, to mid-wicket. It's very difficult and complicated then if you have a straight ball coming and you've then got to bring the bat round to get it back on a straight bat path onto the line of the ball. In terms of hands, again, just at release of the ball, just a little cock of the wrist. So we're lining up and we're getting this, we talk about a figure 9. We talk about a figure 9 created between the shoulder, the elbow, the hands and the bat. So you see this figure 9. And when players move forward, that figure 9 goes with them as the toe of the bat goes up, and the same when they go back. It's called a step and swing, and you create that figure 9 to allow you to create the back swing. A lot of players will just cock this top wrist, so the wrist will cock to get the toe of the bat up. So as they move, by getting the toe of the bat up, it allows them, certainly on the shorter balls when the ball's bouncing, to then come down on the ball. The wrist is cocked, the toe is up, and it can hit down on the ball. If you don't have the cocked wrist and the bat stays quite low and flat, there's a tendency when the ball is short to then come up with the ball, and that's when you can lose control of your shot. So if you're playing a pull shot, your hands would be coming from low to high and the ball could go up. So just having this little cock wrist allows you to get on top of the ball. And just watching someone like Devon Conway last year, I think sort of has come on the scene and blown away at Test cricket, done really, really well, a top class player. Cocked wrist, gets on top of the ball on the back foot and then gets into some beautiful positions on the front foot as well. What is without doubt, and you know, is if you look around a lot of the world's best players, Babar Azam, Rohit Sharma, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Ben Stokes, I mean the list is virtually endless. You'll find that the modern day batsman is batting at ball release, so if we take a right-handed batter facing a right arm over bowler, at ball release the head is in and around off stump, so middle and off stump. So why are these world's best players, who are very productive all around the world, why are they doing it? Well, they do it because they know that the majority of high quality bowling is going to be pitching on or just outside off stump. And if they are already in position, in a good position, in and around that area, if they have to play it, their head is behind the line. And if it's outside the line, they know that anything outside where their head is, which is pretty much in and around off stump, they don't need to play it. When they're playing quicker bowling, they haven't got to take the time to get across the wicket. They're already there. If it's outside at 90 mile an hour, I can just leave it. Facing Archer at 95 mile an hour, it's much simpler to be as Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne were, who did really well in the Ashes Test series, already over there. I can leave anything outside off stump, and if he comes a bit straighter, I can tuck him off into the leg side. So it's very much the tactic of Steve Smith and Labuschagne, who were the two most successful Australian batters on that last Ashes series in England. So it's not just about the guard and the position that they take. The key things, if batters are going to stand, and what we must remember, these players do alter it. So what is very successful against a Kookaburra on a flatter pitch in Cape Town or in Perth, as I said before, can be a little bit trickier in England on a green seamer with a Duke's ball. So these players will alter that a little bit. You know, so standing on off stump, a lot of places around the world which is successful, come to England when it can nip back or swing back late. You'll find those players will probably bring their head more to middle just to cater for the very late movement back into the stumps. Now, as well as positioning, head in and around, generally in and around off stump, it's all about alignment and key having feet, hips and shoulders lining up to the bowler's stumps. So a right-hander facing a right arm over at ball release, and this is either after a trigger or if you don't have a trigger, it's having that alignment and that position ready to move. So if I'm lining up to the stumps with my feet, hips and shoulders and the ball is being delivered from a right arm over, it means I'm very, very slightly open to the line the ball is actually being delivered from. Now the key thing there is, if the ball now comes straight, because I'm a little bit open, I can access it with a full face of the bat, back down the stumps. If it's coming in, again, I can then access the ball to hit into the leg side, and if the ball is outside the off stump, I can get my head and my front shoulder and front hip into the ball to hit through the offside. So I've basically got an alignment and a setup that can hit all different lines of balls. And that's really what this is about. You know, you don't know where the ball is going to go. A bit like a bit like a goalkeeper trying to save a penalty, doesn't know if he's going right or left, and he's got to be able to move in both directions. So the alignment, feet, hips and shoulders back straight. Hand, as we talked about before, hand and elbow, and face back at the stumps. Now, the players who bat on off stump or middle and off and have problems are the ones who, just as the ball is being released, tend to make a little early movement with their head and their body across to where the ball is coming from. The top players don't do that. They wait and they keep their head and their front shoulder dipping forward. So everything is going back at the stumps, and even if the ball is being delivered from wide out on the crease, they track the ball, but they then meet the finishing line of the ball to make sure they're in a perfect position to play it. All right? If you take the early line and you start to go with the head and front foot across to where the ball's starting from, you're always going to get a problem if the ball comes back in, because you fall across it and you'll become a big LBW candidate. All right? So just waiting, staying in here, tracking the ball, and then getting the head and foot to meet the finishing line of the ball is absolutely crucial. So most batsmen will have two guards and two alignments depending on whether they're facing a right armour or a left arm over bowler, and the same obviously for a left-handed batsman facing a left arm over or a right arm over. So if we look at, we talked before a little bit about a right-hander facing a right arm over. the alignment, feet, hips and shoulders and face is back at the stumps, all right? Slightly open to the angle that the ball is coming on so they can access offside, straight and through mid-on. Now if you're facing Mitchell Starc, lovely thought, 90-odd mile an hour swinging, Trent Boult, these top left armers who can bowl at pace and they can swing the ball in, you don't now want your head to be too far across, because if your head is on off stump for a left armer who can swing it in, you're going to be playing across the front pad and you'll be LBW before you have time to move. All right, so what you'll find is a lot of players will, facing the left armer, the head will be, at ball release will be on middle stump, but everything now is back at where the bowler is coming from. It's back at his hand, all right? So your feet, your hips and your shoulders are all lining back at his hand. You're dipping your head and your face back at that bowler's hand and you stay in there. You really protect the line which is in and around leg stump, middle stump and middle stump. So if the ball goes across, we then move our head and shoulder into it. But if it does swing back in, because my weight is going back to where the ball's coming from, it swings in, I can meet it straight, or if it swings even more, I can then play off on the leg side. All right, what you see with a lot of young players is they face a left armer, they see the starting line and they start to go across, and then when the ball swings, playing across the line. But the key here, feet, hips and shoulders, forward, back at the bowler's hand and really track the ball. All right, and we've said all along, track the line, don't move, watch it, and where does the ball finish? If it finishes in here, I move into the offside. If it finishes in middle and leg, my head and my foot back towards mid-on to the finishing line of that ball. Okay. So a trigger or pre-delivery movement is really a movement just before release of the ball that sort of fires up the body, fires up the legs to move quickly. And at the top end of the game, there are very, very few international players who don't have some kind of movement that allows them to get forward or back quickly, you know, especially if you're facing 80, 90 mile an hour bowling. And it's a bit like watching Wimbledon and seeing a player return a serve 130 mile an hour. You'll see that tennis player, little step, just something that boom allows them to get onto the forehand or quickly onto the backhand. You've got to move fast, and that little something gets you going. Now, there are good triggers and there are bad triggers. I don't necessarily have a personal preference on a player must have a certain type of trigger, because I almost work it backwards. I mean, a lot of the things we've talked about are when the ball is coming out of the bowler's hand, are you balanced enough to allow you to get forward and back quickly? Can you get to all different lines? Now, if that is a tiny little forward press, allows you that, or if it's a double movement, which some people have, and it allows you that, or if it's just a back and across, and you can still move everywhere, then that's fine, because it's a personal choice. My only time I get involved with triggers with players is if I feel they have a trigger and it's too big and they get stuck and they can't then get forward, or it's too late and they're still rushing and then they can't get a base to play from. Then I would look at the trigger and say, look, I don't think it's being effective for you, because when the ball's coming out, you can't get forward and back easily and you can't get to off stump and leg stump, and that's all we want. Now, saying that, taking all that into account, what you'll generally find is the earlier the movement, the better. The smaller the movement, the better. And the more you can keep your head still, obviously easier then for you to go from there quickly into each line of ball. So you're looking probably for an earlier trigger, not too big a trigger, fast movement forward, fast movement back, depending on the line and length of the ball. So key thing with the stance, and this is whether you have a trigger or whether you just stand perfectly still at ball release. The key is, can you move quickly forward and back? Can you access all lines of delivery? All right, that's the really important thing. So I see players coming and saying, you know, is my trigger okay? Should I have a trigger? Should I not? As long as you, when the ball is coming out of the bowler's hand, can get forward and back quickly, can get to off stump and leg stump, I'm happy with that, and you should be, as a player, should be happy with that. So what we tend to find is feet generally shoulder width apart, because that allows nice easy movement forward and back. A little bit of give in the knees. Knees almost like shock absorbers, which give a powerful position to quickly move, bang, I want to get forward, or I want to push forward to push onto the back foot, but just a little bit of give so I can transfer weight quickly up and down the wicket. And this is what it's all about, it's going up and down the wicket, not going across the wicket. Feet shoulder width apart, front foot normally withdrawn a couple of inches, hips and shoulders are lining up to the bowler's stumps, face is back towards the bowler's stumps, but by withdrawing this front toe, what it really allows us to do is, if the ball deviates late, if it swings in or seams in late, it allows us to just turn the foot very slightly to get the bat back on the line of the ball. We don't have to worry about getting the whole bulk of the pad and the leg out of the way and then boom, sort of hit an LBW before you've had time to move it. The other thing, of course, by just withdrawing this front toe slightly, it gets the weight back at the stumps, and everything we're saying at the moment from right-hander facing a right arm over is allowing our head and our body weight to get back down to the line of the stumps. So head and shoulder are dipped slightly forward, hands are kept very, very close. Now there's weight in a bat, all right, there's weight in a bat, and the closer we can keep the hands and the bat to the body, the easier it is for us to go up and down the wicket. And we've all seen players who the hands tend to go a little bit wide, and if the hands and the bat go wide with the weight of the bat, the head will go with it and we'll start going across the wicket, playing that way or playing across the front pad. So what we're looking for here, hands very, very tight under, toe towards sort of first slip on just over off stump, and then from there we're in a beautiful position to play with our hands coming under our head on all our straight bat shots. All right, just dipping the head and front shoulder forward brings our body weight a little bit closer to the front foot, and we often talk about having 60% of our body weight on the front foot and 40% on the back foot. And the reason for this is, you know, off 22 yards at pace, it's a lot harder to get forward than it is to get back. So by just having a little bit of weight forward, if it is in that area, I can push quickly to get into that, and if I see it short, I push off the front foot to get back and play my back foot shots. All right, so it's 60-40, just a little bit of lean on that front side. When we talk about the hands staying in close to the body, we're looking for, from straight on there, we're looking for a straight line. If I drew an imaginary straight line, head through my hands and bat, down through my feet. Now I know if there's a straight line, then it's very easy to move quickly up and down the wicket and to play straight. So we're going from this beautiful straight position, head, hands and bat, all right, and right down through the middle of the feet. Now the more in your stance that the head gets outside the line of my feet, my weight now is going this way. Very difficult if balls pitch on a good length quickly, straight. I can't get there because my weight is going that way. So I need everything in, head forward, to fall straight, play back down the ground. Yep. So from a balanced position at ball release, we've judged the ball, it's full, we're going on to the front foot. So as we move now, the head, the front shoulder and the front foot onto the line of the ball, the toe of the bat goes higher, and we've talked about the sort of unweighting of the bat to allow us to get a bit more rhythm in the swing, better timing and better power. And as this toe of the bat goes up, we step forward to create a base. And any base on the front foot, whether you're attacking or defending, you want your head over your front foot, because from there we can defend under our head. If we want to drive and it's full enough to drive, we extend our figure 9 all the way through the ball, but again the head is over the front knee. Power, timing, control of the shot. And we mentioned earlier in the setup the straight line, head through the hands, through the feet, and when we play on the front foot, the straight line is now head, bat, ball. So wherever we hit on the front foot, straight line, head, bat, ball. So I often talk about going from straight line, head, hands, feet, to straight line, head, bat, ball. And you should be still when you play the shot. Perfect balance. Watch that ball sail to the boundary. When you study the world's best players and you look at all the, your Virat Kohlis, your Rohit Sharmas, all these top players, when they move forward to the ball, the hands stay close to the body, and as their head goes forward, the hands are always under the head as the toe of the bat goes back. Always under. You don't see the hands going away from the body, and this allows them to keep everything beautifully straight. So when the bat comes down, full face of the bat through the line of the ball. But it keeps it simple. Hands, if anything deviates, I can adjust if my hands are in close. The minute I go away, balance and weight goes away, and I've got to come across the line to hit the ball. So you'll see these great players, head to the ball, hands are under the head as they move to hit the ball. If we judge the ball as short and we decide to go onto the back foot, it's now a step and swing on to the back foot. So as we step back, the back foot goes first, toe of the bat goes up, the hands get taken back, allow us to get a stable base, and again when we connect with the ball, straight line, head, bat and ball, whether that's a defensive shot or a back foot bunch or a defensive shot even down to mid-on. Head, bat, ball, beautiful straight line. So we've talked about alignment and guard facing seamers, so you know, right arm over, right arm facing a left arm in swing. Let's have a little look at spin. So a right-hander facing off spin, ball turning back in. There's a tendency, especially if the ball is really spinning on pitches that are offering a lot of grip, for batters to sort of bat with their head and their back foot slightly more to the offside, because you know that your scoring area, your safest option generally, is hitting with the spin into the leg side. You know, the canny off spinner who's getting a lot of turn might throw a few out on the offside to try and encourage you to hit square and then create the gate to get through, to get you out that way. But normally you'll be standing further to the offside and looking to play with the spin. Conversely, facing a left arm spinner or a leg spinner who gets a bit of drift in, guard would tend to be a little bit more to middle and leg stump, because you then allow for that drift and the angle that those bowlers get, and if they're slightly short you can open up your scoring area with the spin in through the offside. Also, if you've got a left armer bowling an arm ball or a leg spinner gets a bit of drift and it hits you on the pad and you're standing on middle and leg, there's every chance that that ball is still going down the leg side. But if you're standing on off stump, you'd play across the drift and your front foot ends up on the line of the ball. So slightly different guards depending on whether you're facing a left arm spinner, leg spinner or an off spinner. Now, facing spin, I mean, I think a lot of young players struggle a little bit with knowing when to come down the wicket, and it's almost got to become something that's sort of almost automatic, because you do so much of it, you face so many balls, you almost don't think about it. I think having the intent to come down the wicket, to try to get to the pitch, to take the spin out of it and take the surface out of it is really important. So quick first step, you're looking to come down, head and front shoulder dip again, get the toe of the bat up, so similar to what we've talked about before, and then a big first step pretty straight to allow us from there to get as close as we can to the ball, either to drive it or, if we're not quite there, to control it, to get over the top, high hands and just defend it under our heads to control the ball and get on top of the ball. I mean, someone like Michael Clark, I know he retired a couple of years ago, was a wonderful player of spin, very, very fast feet, and you think of the top international players playing spin, it's normally incredibly quick footwork. And I think Joe Root picks length quickly, he knows when to get forward and back, and if he is going, he's fast to get down. He knows the length that he wants to sweep from, and if it's slightly short, again, quick feet, pushes back, and he opens up that cut into the offside. So picking length quickly, really fast feet, strictly come dancing feet, light on your feet, all right, up and down that wicket, and then when you're there, just like when you play your seamers, solid base, still base to control the ball. Now that's middle of it. So Neil, how did you find that?
Initially I found the pace a bit difficult. Anything around my body did get tucked up a little bit. Anything outside my off stump was able to hands through the line, etc. Yes, the session went along, did find it a little bit easier. But yeah, what did you think?
Good. I mean, look, it's a little bit damp, so it's skidding. So I think, as you say, it took a little bit adjusting to the pace of the ball. Strength for me was your judgment outside off stump. I thought you left a lot of good balls, and clearly, you know, square drives, off drives, you like to score through there. Bit trickier for you when it's a bit straighter and coming in at leg stump. And what was noticeable, I think, is at ball release, your back foot is actually sliding back to the leg side, so your alignment is actually going to mid-off, but the bowler is coming from here. And if you think about it, if your feet and everything are aligned that way and the ball's coming, it's going to make you come a little bit across the ball. You're going to end up slicing across it, rather than keeping your feet and your hips and your shoulders back and allowing you then to play with a straight full face when the balls are that little bit straighter. All right. In terms of when you're playing, do you want to be standing still, or would you like a little trigger? What works for you?
I would say a slight trigger, ideally.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and look, and the purpose of a trigger, as we know, is just to get you moving and to be able to move quickly forward and back. So, easy drill. We'll take the pace off it. We'll do some bobble feeds, get you in that position, and make sure that we get the trigger in early, and that when the ball's coming out of the hand, you're lined up with where the ball's coming from to allow you to access all lines of delivery. Okay,
sounds good.
Good. Right, so we want you to end up with your head and your back toe on there. So you may need to start on leg stump to get to middle. Because what's been happening, you've been ending up on off stump.
And this is where the problem's coming. You're ending up on off stump plus you're sliding across, right? Now we need your middle and slightly open to go back to where the ball's coming from. So those toes in your head might need to start even further potentially back. Right? And just practice the trigger movement that you would want to use. Okay. Can you get that back foot to land just on middle rather than getting to off stump? So it just keeps you on middle. Even smaller, very small. And the key thing we're looking at here for a trigger, can you move forward easily? Can you move back easily? So if that triggers a big movement, now you're stuck and you can't get forward. So it's a very small movement, just so you can shift your weight forward and you can shift your weight back, okay? So just tiny movement, try to get onto that off middle stump like, yeah, that's better. That's better. Good. As you're doing it, can you bring your head and your shoulder a little bit further forward towards where the ball will be coming from? So trigger, that's good. And what this is doing is bringing your weight this way to get down a little. That's better. Good. Small movement. Excellent. Right. Just hold. So next time you do it, just hold the position. That's great. Stay there. Right. Now what we're looking for, so if we did a line now, right? Try and get your head back where the ball's coming. So head, shoulders, hips, feet. Now aligning to where the ball's coming from. Stay where you are. Now from there, whatever line the ball, if the ball is leg stump, I can fall into it. If the ball is straight, I can fall into it. If it goes across me, and I turn my head, my shoulder, my front hip to go in through mid-off. But I'm setting up for this area, and I track the ball across. What you've been doing is there at ball release, and then it's made it very difficult to access the ball that's coming in here. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah. All right, good. So we're going to do some underarm feeds and just try and get you hitting the ball back through mid-on, okay, from that trigger. Sharp, that's good. Play. Good. Now what you've got to work out now, right, is if balls are pitching middle and leg stump, middle, then you can hit them back. If the ball gets further across, now you've got to turn your shoulder, your hip and your front foot to hit them through mid-off. So you've got to work out the line that goes back this side of the stumps, and the line is a little bit wider that goes back more on the off side, okay? Good, wait. Shot. Beautiful. Where are you going? So your whole thing, right, your whole batting, for me, would revolve around you now, being consistent with this movement. Trigger early, head stays still and here. At the moment you're there, and just as I'm going to throw, you've got this gone. As soon as you do that, this is going to land across, because otherwise you'd fall on your face. So it's there, keep your head back at the ball, dip your shoulder. Now we can play up and down the wicket, all right? So keep your head driving back at where the ball's coming from. I'm going to really challenge you now. Yeah. Top hand only. Whoa, this is tough. All right, take that bottom hand off the bat and just going to use your top hand, your right hand, okay? All right, see if you can get them back. Same thing, trigger and then just top hand to hit. Stay in there. All right, this is a really tough drill, mate. This is the best drill there is. Strong. Come on, strong. All right, don't look, toe the bat's wandering behind you, all right? Hands in close, so you're close to your body, line between the hand and the elbow, back at the bowler. Hold it. Yes! Shot, boy! Woo! Firm on that wrist. Stay there. That's the position you've got to get in at the end of the trigger. Trigger, good. And then in. Yes! Shot. Excellent. Hey, that's a really good shot, alright? So what you're getting full face, and what we're looking for when you hit, powerful position, head over your foot, still, and accelerate the hands and the arms and the back through the ball, okay? Hold it. Good shot. Hold it, hold it. Happy? Okay, look, there was a lot of good things. Alignment was excellent. You've got a solid base, and when you brought the shoulders down, your shoulders went a little bit across the ball, which is why it's gone there rather than mid-on, all right? So just let the shoulders go vertically through the ball. That ball would drill back straight past the stump. There's a lot of good things with that shot. A lot of good things. Solid base. Stay there. Wait, wait. Which way your shoulders go? Yeah. Okay, so again, setup was good, right?
trigger was good. You got into the ball, lovely position. Then just at the last bit, let your shoulders go in a straight line. You'd have been perfect.
Same again.
All right, I'll do it in front of you so you can see it. Stay where you are. So you're getting in here now, and then just as you're coming to the ball, you're just almost doing that, rather than just keep the shoulder in, let the hands and the back go through. Shoulder in, hands and back through, rather than shoulders opening, which is when you slice across the ball. Okay? Nice, good, your head's forward, brilliant. Yeah, hold it, excellent shot. So what I want you to do now, exactly what we're doing, same drill, bobble feed, top hand, hit it, and I want you to hold the bat up there at full extension and place the bottom hand on. And when you place it on at full extension, what you'll find is you've now got more of a thumb and finger grip rather than where you would have been before, quite strong bottom. All right, so this will allow you now to come behind the front side rather than to dominate the shots. All right, so we're going to hit top hand, hold it up there, place the bottom one on, don't change the grip, and now go with two hands and then play with two hands. Okay? Good. Hold it, good. Shot. Hold it, good. Head this side of your foot. Is your head this side of your foot or behind your foot?
Behind.
Right, I want you to check it and see if you can get it over your bent front knee, because what it'll give you is more power into the shot.
Yeah.
Right, I want you to hit now all with two hands, alright? Good. That's a great shot. Good, that's it. Can I just give you one little word of advice, right? Because it's good now. Much better. Trigger's really good. Just at the last bit, try not to take the hands out. Because if the hands got out, then what happens, and the ball's coming on this line and the hands are out, you've then got to come across the line of the ball. So keep the hands close to the body, and you'll see it, look, with all the world's best batters, hands are tight to the body. All right, so when they go back, close to your body so they can come straight through the ball, rather than out and a little bit across it, slicing across it. All right, so see if you can go back close to your body when you take them back. Lovely. Set up, brilliant. So many good things. Trigger, excellent. Head forward. When you're going to hit the ball, shoulders did that, ball slices. Shoulders need to go vertically through. Let this front shoulder go in a straight line through. All right? And then it would have been absolutely spot on. Straight up, straight down. Let this one control it, not cross. All right. Otherwise, again, the shot would have been right. Everything else was right, and that ball would have gone the way you wanted it. Keep that top hand taking the bat back straight. Yes. There you go. Good, and accelerate through. Good shot. What do you feel there?
Came across there again.
All right, now sometimes the going across, right, with you is caused because when you pick up the bat, the toe goes behind you and then you've got to come across it. So it's toe to the first slip, arms lined up, shoulders lined up, back at where the ball's coming from. From there, straight in with the front shoulder, right? So there's no rotation. It's straight up, straight down, okay? Shot, mate. Hold it, good. Lovely shot. The blade is looking straighter and it looks as if your front side, your front shoulder, your top hand is doing more work, all right?
The improvement as the session went along of my setup and alignment at ball release is clear for everyone to see. With thanks to Toby, my game improved in this one session. By working on my trigger, my back leg was moving onto middle stump, meaning I was less cramped with balls aimed at my leg side. I also left the net with better alignment, with my head also being positioned on middle stump at ball release, whilst my front shoulder was now going more into the shots. All this assisted with better top hand control.
But Toby, let's get into this discussion about batting, and a high level question. What are your main philosophies when it comes to coaching batting?
I think my philosophy as a coach per se, not just with batting, I think is that players in many ways become their own coach. I think, you really want players to understand their own game, their own strengths and weaknesses and how they build a game plan around that. So I think the days of coaching where you just give instruction are long gone, because you don't want a player when things aren't going right to come and have to keep knocking on your door and tell, well, what do I do? So I think it's giving them, when you're helping them develop their game, you're giving them understanding why things work, why things don't work. Because when you're not there, you want them to be able to put them right. And of course, when a batsman walks over the white line out to the middle, he's on his own. So he has to be able, and she has to be able to think on their feet. So for me, that's my big part of my coaching philosophy, is to get them to understand their game. I think that's the major thing for me.
Do you think there is a big difference in the way batsmen are coached in different parts of the world? Obviously, you've coached at the highest level, international level, county cricket. What are the main differences that you've seen globally in different parts of the world?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think conditions obviously determine that. So if you look at Asian players, they tend to stand, and I know you want to talk a little bit about guards, and they tend to stand a little bit more leg side of the ball, just the way they're brought up. On the quicker surfaces, say in England, South Africa, Australia, players tend to stand a little bit further across, closer to the off stump. So guards for sure. Asian players brought up on slow turning wickets. They're very good with their wrists. They manipulate spin well. English players don't do that as well, because we're not brought up on those pitches. So we tend to play swing better, because that's what we are used to. We're front foot players. The Australians and the South Africans are more cuts and pulls, because they're brought up on quicker, bouncier wickets. So I think the players are a product of the environment and the conditions they're brought up in. And I think wherever you're coaching, you're working with that, but you're also trying to develop players that can go and perform in other parts of the world. So when I'm working with Bangladesh, I'm saying, look, we know you're good in Bangladesh and play well on slow pitches and you play spin well. But when we go and play against Australia, you've got to be able to stand up to Mitchell Starc bowling a 90-odd mile an hour around your head on a bouncy wicket in Perth. So we've got to practice for that. So it's all about developing the player to be able to perform in other parts of the world. And if you look at international cricket, there aren't many teams who perform as well away as they do at home. India, fantastic at home, but they struggle a bit more with the swinging ball. It's a test. England, very good against the swinging ball, struggle when it turns in India. So you're trying all the time as a coach to develop those bits where you're not brought up that way, and you want to improve those areas. Yeah.
Another big debate that I have seen in amongst commentators, etc., and I want to get your insight on it. So are you of the belief that a player should be continually taught the technical correctness of their game, or should they be able to almost have guidance from afar and just work it out from themselves? What are your philosophies on that?
Well, I think that the teaching and the learning is done in the early stages, isn't it? And it's coming back to that understanding. So, good technique is put in at the early ages, whether it's, 7, 8, 9, and you're developing, playing on the front and back foot, a good solid defense. You've got your shots, your scoring options. That comes at a very early age. Now, when that's built in, all the top players, then it's experience, and they just alter things as they develop their career. Their grip might change a bit. Their setup might change subtly. But the good basic technique should already be in place. I mean, that doesn't always happen, and sometimes you find players, as they go through the stages, little things creep in, and your job as a coach, when little habits creep in, and sometimes players don't feel them and know they're doing them, is your job is just to give that little bit of feedback. Say, look, do you realise that the bat's going a little bit behind your back, or your back foot sliding the wrong way? Little things that creep in. But I don't think the basics of the game have got to be done earlier. Get those in, and then it's just a case of letting players develop and work some things out as they go through.
When it comes to, again, you've worked at the highest level and things are scrutinized a lot. If a player does adjust their technique in between games, how difficult is that to implement it in a game situation? How many hours of repetition would they have to perform? What are your views, insights, and experiences on that?
It varies from player to player. Some players are able to make changes very quickly and do it in a way where they don't worry about it and they just make the adjustments. Some people panic a bit and then they overanalyze and worry about it. So you've almost got to know the individual, and you as an individual player have to know yourself. So I think the way that you deliver it to the player, you've got to know their personality and how they might respond. So if there's an issue that needs dealing with, occasionally I'll play it down if it's someone I know would worry about it. If it's someone who's quite laid back, you can be very honest and say, look, I think we need to sort this out, because you know they're not going to go away and it's going to affect them. The timing of when you make an intervention as a coach is a really important thing. You know, players might be scoring runs and they have an issue, and you might think, look, just leave them go. They're in good form, their confidence is high, just let them carry on. Obviously, if they're having a run of low scores and you know potentially what the issue is, then you've got to raise it. And you know, to answer your question in terms of how often you've got to hit the balls to put things right, I think it's a very individual thing. It's a very individual thing. You know, the bigger jobs are generally done out of season, but there are times in the middle of a series where somebody's struggling and you've just got to go and target the area that's causing the problem. And that might be, look, if it's a swinging ball, we've got to go out tomorrow, set up the bowling machine, let's replicate Jimmy Anderson, let's set it up for his pace and his angle, so that when you face Jimmy in the next test, you know, it's not guaranteed success, but you've got more chance of it coming off because you've really practiced specifically for what the challenge is that lies ahead. You know?
And then when it comes to the makeup of a skill set of a batsman, what percentage would you put mindset in that?
I think mindset is huge. Confidence, having a clear game plan. But, you know, you can have the best game plan in the world. If you haven't got a technique to carry it out, you're not going to get very far. So you need the basic technique, but you then clearly need a game plan to go and be effective in the middle. And ultimately, look, batting is about scoring runs. And there are loads of different ways to bat. And there've been some very ugly looking batters who are very effective. And there've been some beautiful looking players who don't score as many runs. It is about scoring runs. And ultimately people look in the book, don't they, years down the line, say, oh, this player averaged 50, scored thousands of 10. He must have been a top player. And this comes back again to knowing your game. If you know you don't play a good cover drive, don't play too many cover drives. You know, so build your game around knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are as well.
And then perhaps this is more a question for young players, club players. What should their mindset be and approach be when it comes to practice? Because obviously you do see, like, I'm a club player myself. You go down to the nets every Wednesday and you just go in the nets, hit a few balls, go for a few beers. But then when you're not performing on the Saturday, what switch should you be making if it's to perform your game, to aid your game?
I think practice needs to have a purpose. I think in every opportunity, that whenever you go to a net, it's an opportunity to improve your game. Now, that might be working on a specific aspect. It might be saying, look, I'm struggling against left arm spin. I'm going to set up my practice. Let's face a bit of spin and work on my game. So there may be a very specific element. You might know the team you're playing against next Saturday and the type of pitch you're going to play on. Right, I'm going to make my practice now. They've got a big, tall left armer. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get the bowling machine on left arm. It's going to swing in, so that, again, when you come to your game on Saturday, you've given yourself the best chance for success because you've practiced the very angle, the line, the type of movement you're going to face on the Saturday. So I think very specific and practice with a purpose always. And I'm a big one. When somebody's game is in order, I'm always a big one for stretching them in practice. Make practice tough so that when you get out into the match, things will feel easier. You know, turn up the pace of the flinging. I fling from a bit closer sometimes. There have been times when we played England in the Caribbean a few years ago with the West Indies. You know, I was bowling off a short pitch, but I was polishing up the balls with shoe polish because I said, look, guys, Jimmy's going to swing the ball. Broad's going to swing the ball. Let's make practice difficult. So when you face him in the middle, hopefully he's going to be easier than my boot polished and shaped ball. You know, so make practice specific and make it difficult, I think.
And then something that, whether you're a professional, the best batsman in the world, or again, a young clubby, everyone goes through a low run of scores, that feeling that you can't even hit it off the square. As a coach, what would you be talking to that player about in terms of to assist them making that switch and kick them into getting a few scores?
I think the first thing is them understanding and appreciating that's the nature of the game. And you can be the world's best player. You can be Virat Kohli. He's had runs of low scores. Every player in the world who's ever played the game has had a run of low scores. So you're not unique. Don't feel that it makes you a bad player because the world's best have tough times. That's the nature of the game. Bowlers are there to get you out. You're gonna make the odd mistake. They're gonna bowl good balls. You're gonna get bad decisions. You're gonna play on bad pitches. All these things can happen. So first of all, accept that that can be the nature of the game. Look and learn. Are you getting out in the same way? Is there something to be learned from how you've been getting out? Is there a pattern? Are you getting out to the same type of bowler? Is it the same type of length, same type of shot? So, there's a learning to do. And I think, look, very much for me, it's about getting back to the key basics. Play late, try and play as straight as you can. And as I tell every batter I work with, certainly on the slightly longer formats of the game, give yourself half an hour. So when you go out to bat, right, you've got to be switched on for that first period. Batting generally always gets easier. The toughest bit is when you first walk out there. You don't know the pace of the wicket. You haven't really seen the bowler before. What's the ball doing? So be sharp that first half an hour. And I say to guys, if you bat for half an hour, you'll probably bat for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You'll get yourself a score. You'll get the team a score. So that first period of just being positive. And I think if you go out with a positive mindset of what I'm looking to do, while your brain is thinking of a positive thing, it can't then be worrying about failing or having another low score or anxiety. You've given yourself a positive thing to think about. And I think that's the best way to go.
And when you mentioned positivity, is that aggressive nature, but aggressive in intent? So even when you're leaving the ball, aggressive, quick singles, would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely, yeah. Positivity isn't aggression. Positivity is exactly what you said. It's intent. That everything you do, even when you're leaving the ball, I'm showing that I've judged the length. I'm getting into the ball. I'm moving my feet. I'm busy. And I'm showing that I'm sharp. You've got to be sharp early on, because if you're not sharp, often you're back in the pavilion before you realise it. Especially at the slightly higher levels where the pace of the bowling, and you've just got to be on it from ball one. It will get easier from there, and you'll cash in later on in the day. That's the way to look at it.
What is the balance in between analysing the opposition and worrying about and looking at your own game?
I think you've got to be able to do both. I think you should have a good understanding of your own game. As I've already said, that should be fairly ingrained. You know your game, you know your strengths, you know your weaknesses. And I also believe, look, I think the world's best, even before they walk out to the middle, they know where their scoring options are. If A.B. de Villiers faces a good leg spinner, he's done it so many times before. He knows where his easy single is. He knows if he needs a boundary, where he's going to go for it. So that experience of a clear game plan. Now, for young players, you've got to work that out. So if you're facing a certain type of bowler, where's my least risk option for a single? Where's my least risk option for a boundary? And I think when you stick to that kind of, plan is already there. All you've got to go out and do is execute. You don't want to be thinking of what to do when you're out there. That's got to be pretty much done before you get out there. And then you just play the ball as you see fit into that game plan,
What would your main advice be for a young player perhaps suffering with nerves during the week of the game and then just about to go out to the middle?
I think anxiety is, everyone feels it. And I think we all get anxious, certainly waiting to bat. It's often a one-chance game as a batter, and we know that. If we make one mistake, that's game over, can be. So I think, again, you've got to come back to this point of view. I'm not unique. Everybody feels nervous before they bat. So I think that should take a little bit of pressure off. And I would start to fill the brain more with the positive things. I'm going to have a routine before the game. I'm going to have my 5 or 10 minutes hitting balls. I'll do my top hand drills or whatever my little routine is before I go out to bat. So everything is filled with positivity. Where I'm going to, how I'm going to look to play today. I'm going to spend this first half an hour getting into the innings. And so I think fill it with positivity. Accept that anxiety is a part of it. Breathing techniques, so good slow your breathing down. And what you'll find with a lot of the professional players is they'll have, while they're waiting to go into the bat, they'll have they'll have music on. They might have some calming music, and they'll have their iPod to listen to. So that can be something that just sort of calms the brain and gets you in a good frame of mind, ready to go out to bat.
And then a subject that's had a lot of attention, perhaps a lot in the UK, is about taking guard.
Yeah.
A lot of county players see on TV, they're now moving on to off stump when they're taking guard. What are your views on that kind of setup? I know every player's different, but what are your general views on that and trigger movements, etc. from a technical point?
It's look, it's all about where your head is at release of the ball. And what you're finding at the moment around the world, that a lot of the top players, and Babar Azam, Steve Smith, Kane Williamson, Ben Stokes, I mean, you could run a list of them. Most of them, if not all of them, at ball release, their head is close to off stump. It's middle and off stump at best. Now, two things with doing that. Two things that they do. Firstly, if they're in conditions like you get in England, green seamer, early season, big Duke's ball that can nip back in, they will adjust that so that the head that normally gets on off stump and gives them huge success around the world on quite flat pitches, they will maybe just come back a little bit with their guard to cater for the ball that moves in England. So, head becomes maybe more middle, early season in England. If the wicket is pretty flat, they will always be in and around middle and off stump. The second point is, and this is crucial for anyone who has their head close to off stump, at release of the ball, what the top players will do, they will align their head and their body weight back to the bowler's stumps. So a right-hander facing a right arm over bowler, he's a little bit open and he's lined up to the stumps and the body weight goes there. What they don't do is if the ball is released from the middle of the crease or wide of the crease, they don't go to the early part of the flight. Because if you start to get your head going to the early part of the flight and then it angles in, seams in, swings in, you're going to end up playing across the ball and you become an LBW candidate, right? So the two key things are you have to have your head going back at the stumps and watch. I talk to players about tracking the ball, but not going to the early part of flight. Track it and meet wherever the ball finishes. So if it angles in, you can then hit it back straight past the stumps. The problem is, and lesser players, they'll go early and then find they end up playing across the ball. And that's really the secret of playing any ball angling batting.
And then for a young player, perhaps this is something that, it might be a slight generalization, but for a young player that cannot make the step up in levels, it might be due to the fact that they're facing the increased pace as they go through their ages, that inability to adapt and play off the back foot. Again, from a technical aspect, what advice would you give a young player?
Well, I think, again, from an early age, they've got to practice the short ball. And that can be done with tennis balls, incredibles, balls that if it hits you, it's not going to cause any pain or any fear or anxiety, but getting them used to the length and getting them used to the pace. So, you can come, when I was young, many, many years ago, I used to practice with my dad with a tennis ball with tape on it, like they do in Asia. And we had a little old marble floor near us in an old school. And my dad, off a close pitch, used to throw it short and it would skid. So you would kind of get used from an early age to playing on the back foot. So there's all kinds of ways, I think, with young players where you can use, as I say, tennis balls, tape ball, incredible, to get used to it. And then you're looking at the technique of the back foot. Now on the front foot, and if I had £1 for every time I say this to players, I'd be a millionaire, and I'm not. Everything on the front foot is head first, right? Everything is head going to the line of the ball. Whatever line that ball finishes on, my head goes. Now the back foot is different. The back foot is always the back foot going first. And once players get that in their head, that it's always head first on the front foot, but it's always the back foot first on the back foot, then you get into lovely balanced positions and you can hit your cuts and your pulls and your punches nicely from your back foot. The problem is where players play on the back foot and they go head first and then they end up unbalanced and the bottom hand takes over and you lose that lovely control of the front side of the body. So head first, front foot, back foot first, back foot. And that's it really. And I think you can work that with, as I say, with drills, with tennis balls and incredible, etc.
And then your best tip for a young player, perhaps, again, struggling to pick a spinner. Would you advise they pick it out of the hand off the pitch or another technique? Again, your insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, finger spin's not generally a problem, is it? Because with finger spinners, it's pretty easy. You're just waiting for the arm ball more than anything. It's a good quality wrist spinner that's got a well-disguised googly or flipper. That's much trickier. And I actually think the best way to learn isn't necessarily just facing it in the net, but getting somebody who bowls it to throw them and bowl them to you from a close range slowly. So you start to learn what you see from the hand, right? So obviously, you know, with a leg spinner, you're seeing the ball coming at the side. With a googly, you're going to see more of this wrist. Now, what happens is if you get someone just to throw to you slowly, you'll start to pick it up and your brain starts to look for it. The top bowlers obviously bowl very quickly, so you haven't got a lot of time, but you can start to see that is, if you're seeing that, it's a googly. If I'm seeing that, it's a leg spinner, and you'll start to work out which way the ball's going to go. So that's always the way I do it with players. I break it down, then I go into a net situation. But before that, I'm just getting them used to seeing the different parts of the hand and the wrist.
And what, in your opinion, do all the great batsmen, batswomen, either in the modern day or past players, have in common from a technical aspect?
I think they all control the bat with the front side of the body. The top hand does all the work. The front shoulder, the top hand controls the bat. You don't see any world-class players who play only with the bottom hand. It's the top hand that controls it. They play late, so they play close to the body. They look to create a stable base. So whatever shot they're playing, forward or back, attack or defense, they try to play from a stable base, because if they're stable, the head can be still, and then they can create timing, and they can create control, and they can create power. So stable base, top hand, late and close to the body.
It's a fascinating subject. We can talk all day on it, but just to end on, what is your best piece of advice that you give a young player?
Young player, first thing is enjoy it. You've got to enjoy batting. I mean, it's a lovely thing to do. There's nothing better than hitting a lovely shot off the middle of a bat and seeing the ball flow. Enjoy your batting. If you have tough times, you'll get through them. Keep learning, keep developing. I mean, I've been very lucky, I think, over the years to work with, you know, some top players, and I've loved the mindset. And I think back to someone like a Shiv Chanderpaul, who I was very fortunate to work. I mean, he was #1 in the world. He was always looking to get better. And I think have that open-mindedness to keep improving, because I do believe the best players are never satisfied. They're always pushing the bar, and that's why they're the best. They're always looking to just try and get that little bit better.
Toby, perfect. Thank you again for your time today, and all the best for the months ahead.
Good to chat to you, mate. Speak soon. Take care.
So Neil Cadgram, Cricket Love Stories, Toby Radford. Thank you.
You've also got your new book. You've been busy. Getting to Grips is the title. We're going to run through a few of the key points in this chat and hopefully give some batting tips for young players or even experienced players as well, hopefully improve their technique. But how did that book journey writing come about?
It didn't actually start as a book. It started when I was back working with the West Indies team, and in between series, the players would go back to their Caribbean islands. I'd come back to the colder Cardiff, and they would then send footage across for me to sort of look at. And I started analysing the footage, sending images back, drawings on their footage, and sort of, you know, yes, doing this well, could work on these areas. And I think the players found that quite a positive experience for them to help them work on their game. So during the pandemic, when people couldn't get to their coaches, I then started to put those type of images online to help coaches, to help players. And then the natural progression for that was, in the last year or two, to turn it into a book. I thought it'd be nice that all my Instagram posts, all the stuff I talked about on technique, that I could make it available in a book. So, you know, I then started writing stuff around it. So it's pretty thematic, going from the, you know, your guards, your setups, playing spin, playing swing, all the different parts of batting, to be honest. But using the visual sort of imagery, which hopefully simplifies it and simplifies technique for people.
Yeah, the way you've set out the chapters, you obviously start with the setup, then position at ball release, then pre-delivery trigger, before actually delving into stance and grip, etc.
Yeah.
Is that what you see as the order of importance for a batter's technique? And also, I just want to pick up on a little quote that really stood out for me. You said in the setup section, the shots themselves are not difficult to play, but they are if players are unable to move quickly into the appropriate balanced position to play them. Just want to go a bit deeper into that?
Yeah, just I spend hours most days working with all levels of batters, and you find that the common issue with players is that the problem may be in particular shots, but it comes because they're not particularly, the player isn't well balanced when the ball is released, and because they're not well balanced, they can't then be well balanced when they hit the ball. And also, if you're not well balanced, your decision making is affected. So 99.9% of issues for me come back to the very start. What position is the player in when the ball comes out of the hand? Can they move easily forward and back? Can they get offside? Can they get leg side? Are they in a position that enables them to move quickly, to be stable and balanced when they actually hit the ball? And if you get those things right, the cut, the drive, the pull, they're not difficult to play, but they are, as I said in the book, if you're not in a balanced position to play them.
Yeah, we talked about this next question in our previous videos, but worth covering again because you do cover it in your book quite a bit about the head position at ball release for a batter, either right or left-hander. Again, you'll just give some of your technical tips on that and this kind of stuff you've written in the book.
Yeah, I mean, it's come about from sort of working with and playing against some of the world's best, being in a net next door to Bobble and watching him close at hand, who I think is probably pound for pound the best player in the world, really. And it's this idea that at ball release, that the head is generally, if you did a straight line from the head, it would sort of run down through your hands and down through your base, through your feet. And if your head is somewhere over your feet, it's so much easier then for the player to move up and down the wicket. The more that the head gets outside the line of the feet, the more that you tend to fall across the wicket. Your head goes across to the covers, your front foot lands and blocks you off, and you end up playing around the front pad. So ideally, we want to be moving up and down the wicket. And to enable you to do that, the head wants to be over the top of the feet because that's the easiest way to move up and down the track.
Do you believe that batters who have such core fundamentals can succeed in all formats of cricket? You write a lot about the backswing and playing from a stable base, common skills a lot of people often associate with short form cricket. But is it just more to do with all formats?
Yeah, I'm very much of the belief that the best players are the best players, and if you have those good fundamentals in place, if you have the chassis of the car is solid, then you can put the nice glossy paintwork on afterwards. And if you look at cricket, if you've got good balance and your hands are in a nice position, your head is still, and you play from a stable base, then all the other stuff, the funky stuff that you want in T20s and 50 over cricket, you can just add that on. The risk taking. A ball that in red ball cricket that you might defend, suddenly you take that bit of a risk in the white ball format. But you can't add that on if you haven't got those good basics in place in the first place.
100 cricket's currently going on, IPL, etc. Massive in our game. You've got a big section on power hitting, base, balance, and bat speed. Can you talk through that, some of your technical tips and advice maybe for a young player who is struggling in that?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough in my early days working with the West Indies that Marlon Samuels was still around and probably at the top of his game. And Marlon was someone who helped win 2 World Cups for the West Indies. A fine player. And the bigger the game, the better Marlon played. And he was one of the first, I think, to introduce this idea that, when you're looking to score 360 around the ground, he would position his back foot back to the offside. He'd open up the front side of his body. So what he was basically doing was if the ball was wide of off stump, by taking his back foot back to the offside, he was close and he could reach anything wide of off stump. If the ball came straight, because he'd opened up the front foot, he could access and hit straight down the ground. And obviously, again, because the front foot is open, anything angling into the leg side, he could pick it up on the leg side. So the margin for error for a bowler was very small. And you could, with Marlon, you could be hit offside back over the top or on the leg side. And he often did this at the end of the game. He was one of the first I saw to do it. And now, you see it sort of 10 a penny, really, whether it's the 100 or IPL or whatever. The players set that back foot deep into the offside, open up the front leg, and then become much easier for them to hit all around the ground.
What common mistakes do you feel maybe young players face when it comes to power hitting? They want to emulate the stars, the Butlers, Bobble Azams, Rohit Sharmas, Virat Kohlis, etc. But perhaps what common mistakes do you see as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, trying to hit the ball too hard. And in trying to hit the ball too hard, the head is moving at contact. They're not stable when they want to swing, when they swing the bat down. Their body weight might be coming up or backwards, where you actually want your weight and your momentum going through a shot. They don't keep the bat on the line of the ball for long enough, so the hands almost flick off the line of the ball rather than stay on the line of the ball. You want to. It's like any ball sport, striking sport. You want to keep the blade on the line of the ball for as long as possible, really, to get maximize getting that in the middle of the bat and then see the ball sail. But they'd be some of the key things that you'd see.
Huge focus in England, especially, is about playing swing and seam bowling. Again, do you want to delve into some of the technical advice you outline in the book? A lot about, is it just keeping the head forward, ensuring your bat swing is in the correct position, etc.?
Yeah, a lot of it is playing swing is waiting and allowing the ball to swing. So let the ball do its swing first and then play as late as possible. Players who tend to have problems with the swing, they go at the starting line of the ball, and then by the time they go at the ball, ball's change direction, actually ends up in a different place. So if you want to play swing well, yes, keep your head forward, but keep it within the line of the stumps and allow the ball to either swing out and then you meet it, or if it swings into you, then you meet it. But you want your head where the ball finishes. I often talk about the finishing line of the ball. So it's not where the ball starts, mid-crease or wide of the crease. Let it do its thing, track it, and then try to move to the finishing line of the ball. So you'll be nice and still, you'll be in the right position, and then you can present a good bat face at the ball.
A lot of common mistakes, maybe like for a left-hander, they often play around their pad, trapped LBW against that right-hander. I'm a lefty, so I'm thinking like that. Again, what kind of technical tips would you give them overcoming those difficulties facing swing or seam?
Yeah, well, I touched there in the book about alignments. So guard is important and how you line up at ball release. So a lot of left-handers at the top end of the game now, if they're facing a right arm, if you're facing Jimmy Anderson, he has the ability to swing the ball back in late. Try to line up so the feet, the hips, and the shoulders are lining up with Jimmy's hand, or back at in the direction of where the ball is coming from, so that you're not over sideways. You're open enough that if the ball does swing in, you can access the ball. And the other thing is, from over the wicket, is not to have the head too far across, because if you start getting the head to off stump when the ball's coming from over the wicket, suddenly again, if it swings back in, balls that would be hitting middle stump, you're now playing across the line into too square on the leg side. So generally head in and around middle, but all the alignment, feet, hips, and shoulders back towards the bowler's hand.
Again, we talked about this bit in our previous videos, but where are you on the trigger movement for a batter?
Yeah, very much a personal thing, but I do believe a trigger's got to work for you. And a lot of players at the top end of the game have a trigger because just having their feet have some kind of movement just gets them going. And if you're playing fast bowling, you need to be into position quickly forward, quickly back. And to do that, having that little movement before obviously helps them. The triggers that tend to work well are ones that are done slightly earlier, so you get the movement out of the way early. And obviously, the smaller the movement, the better, because there's less that can go wrong. So if you're moving a little bit late, or it's a big movement, then what you'll tend to find is the head is still moving as the ball's coming out of the hand. Judgment isn't as good, and it's more difficult then to be still and stable when you actually hit the ball. So small is best, early is best to help you get into position to play the shot.
Moving on to spin, when you talk about it in your book, you open by saying fast and nimble footwork are attributes held by all good players of spin bowling. Can you go a bit deeper into some of that advice?
Yeah, I mean, look, picking length is important. Picking length is really important to get up and down the wicket. And what you're trying to do against good spin is you're trying to nullify the spin. So you're either trying to get as close as possible if you're coming down the wicket, or if you're on a turning pitch, you're trying to get back and away from the ball so that you can give yourself room to be able to adapt and adjust to that spin. And you think back over the years, people like Michael Clarke, Australia, fantastic player of spin. Joe Root, wonderful player of spin. And he's got a lovely mix, I think, fast footwork, sweeps particularly well, but always seems to pick the right ball to sweep. Something I often mention to players I work with is, if you're going to sweep and play cross bat shots against the spin, start to work out the area that you're comfortable doing it. So almost like the box you need the ball to land in. And if you're going to premeditate, right, it's got to be in my box. And if it's not in my box, plan B, safe option, and wait for it and then commit to it when it lands in the place that you really want it to be. But yeah, coming back to Root, he's a wonderful player of spin and does that whether it's in England or on the turning pitches in Sri Lanka or wherever he tends to go, you know.
Where do you stand in terms of picking it out of the hand, whether it be a finger spinner, a wrist spinner? Does it differ depending on each bowler, or do you think every batter should pick it out of the hand first?
Look, the earlier you can pick it, the easier it is. I mean, if you know from the hand which way the ball's spinning, then you can just play with the spin. It becomes easy. But when you're facing, your Rashid Khans and these world-class spinners who bowl very quickly and can spin it both ways, it becomes tough. Some don't pick it from the hand; they just can't pick it. And they try and pick the seam in midair, and they can actually see which way the seam's going to know whether it's coming in or going away. And others pick it off the pitch. But obviously, the later you're picking it, the less time you've got to adjust your shot. So those who pick it from the hand, from the wrist, from the shoulder dip, obviously at an advantage because you've got more time to set up which way they want to play their shot. If you're picking it off the wicket, it can be done. I've seen many good players do it, but it is trickier, and you've got less time to get into position to play.
And the advice you give in terms of head position, is that similar to when facing a quick?
The principles are very much the same. Keep your head within the line of the stumps. Try to keep your head slightly forward. You're looking, if you're coming down the wicket, you want a fast feet. So you need your head and front shoulder dipped slightly forward to get the hands up. And you want a little bit more weight going forward and over the front foot. If it's then short, you push back, so you can push back to play that punch into the offside, or push back to clip it into the leg side. So your back foot shots tend to come having pushed off the front foot and then transferring your weight onto the back foot to play it.
Is there like a get out of jail shot? A lot of commentators say if a batter can't pick it, they just play the sweep.
Well, no,
if you hear that as a coach, what's your response?
No, I think to play the sweep is a risky shot. I mean, those who play it well get a lot of runs, and you tend to play the sweep more on length than on line. So if it's on that length, as I said, then you play it well and you keep your head forward, then you can control it. But it's a shot. I think for me, the get out of jail shot, if you're not picking it, is to try to get the bat in front of the pad and to play straight. And it was interesting. Last winter, I was with the England under-19s, and we had a tour of Sri Lanka. We played in Colombo with 5 one-dayers. There wasn't a blade of grass in Sri Lanka. Hot, good spinners. I mean, they're under-19 spinners, as you can imagine. Very good bowlers. And some balls would skid. Other balls would just suddenly fizz, and it was really tough. A couple of things came out of the trip. One was we were definitely better when we got the bat in front of the pad and played the straight line. So if it skidded on and got an inside edge, you probably got 1 to square leg anyway. And if it turned, you could just hold the line and make sure you don't nick it. So if it's really skidding or gripping, that was definitely the safest option. The other thing that really came out of the trip was, as a player, you've got to know what your method is. We had James Rue, who's doing really well for Somerset this year. He's a fine young player. He's, I think, got 100 yesterday in the Royal London. And his method was sweeps, slog sweeps, reverse sweeps. But he obviously then would pick the right ball. And he was very good at sweeping, a bit like Joe Root, but he seemed to know, and he knew when to play it. Conversely to that, we then had Will Luxton from Yorkshire, another fine batter, whose method was much more hit long off, hit long on, play straight, occasionally would play a slog sweep. So you had 2 guys, one who played very much square the wicket, the other one who played up and down the wicket, and both of them played really well, match-defining, match-winning innings. And it just showed that, you could play either way, but you've got to know what your go-to method is, and that your shot selection is good. And both of them did that, and they won us matches out there, which was brilliant.
Where are you on the kind of trick shots, kind of the scoops, etc.? Even a slog sweep, I'll put that in that bracket. Talk about fundamentals, technical fundamentals in this book. Are all those tricks are just an extension of good shots in a way?
I think they are. You have your basic, as I say, you have your chassis of the car first, and then you put the alloys on later, and you do the funky stuff. And if you're going to be playing in these other formats, of course, you want to have shots where you can get across and scoop it, over fine leg or over the bowl, that you can play your reverses and you know how to play them. And the only way you do that is practice. I mean, I could think back 20 years ago when Owen Morgan first came to Middlesex as a youngster, and he was often in the nets doing his little scoops over each shoulder. And he was ahead of the game then, 20 years ago. He was ahead of the game. But he spent a lot of time practicing his reverses. So when he went out in the middle, and he was one of the first to play a lot of those shots, he wasn't just suddenly trying it at Lords in a T20. He had been spending hours working on that in Ireland and when he first came over to Middlesex. So it's practice. And I think for young players, get the confidence of it, practice these shots, know where you need the ball to pitch when you're going to play those shots. So when you go out into the middle, you're not suddenly, under pressure trying to come up with it there. Right, you're confident, you're calm. We've done this. I've done this 1,000 times in practice. And I know if the ball is in that area, I can reverse sweep that area. If it's in this area, I know I can hit it over deep mid-wicket. Because that's what the experienced players do. They've done it so many times. It's almost autopilot in their head, You
have a little section in the book about drills, which a batter can practice for spin bowling. Do you just want to run through some of the things that you've written on that subject as well?
Yeah, there's all sorts of drills for spin. A good one is to play late and to manipulate the face of the bat. So not moving at all, no foot movement, setting up some cones for your gaps and fielders, and even color coding them and having different color balls. So the idea being you throw balls that are straight or have them thrown at you, back of a length straight, and all you're doing as a batter, no foot movement, but you're letting the ball come in and you're just working it, the blue ball maybe into the blue cones in square leg, then you open the face the other way and you get it into extra cover. So what you're learning is control of the bat face. And then when you've got that without foot movement, you then suddenly add the foot movement. Suddenly the game seems so easy because you've got this playing late and manipulating the bat face, but with good feet that get you either close to the ball or, as we said, a little bit off the ball to enable you to maneuver the ball into the gaps that you want.
Well, Toby, it's been a fascinating chat. It's a fantastic book as well. We'll put all the links in the description below of this video for whoever does want to purchase it, they can. But yeah, for a young player, they've got the technical tools from your book. Just to end on, how do you advise them to then go out and just practice and put this into practice and then take the results into the middle?
I hope that the idea of the book was really to help players and coaches keep it simple, simplifying batting. And I think because it's quite a visual book, the feedback I've had is that people are suddenly, God, it makes sense just by seeing some of these diagrams and a few notes around it, that complex techniques, technical stuff can be made very simple. And I believe the game is simple. And, my message with players day in, day out is as I come back to the thing, root cause, simplify it, balance, alignment, and then you can get into lovely positions to play the shot. The game isn't that complicated. We don't want to make it complicated. Simple and fun and hopefully effective.
Perfect, Toby. Getting to Grips, the book, link in the description below of this video. But yeah, Toby, all the best for the weeks and months ahead. So thank you again.
Thanks very much, and all the best to you and to your listeners. Thanks, Neil.
Neil Cadgram, Cricket Life Stories, Toby Radford. Thank you.